Good evening, and welcome to the evening from the New York Times. I'm your host, and it's Monday, August 17, 2026. We've got a lot to get through tonight, from a striking escalation in the Middle East to a murder trial 3 decades in the making, a remarkable turnaround in one of America's most violent cities, and a centuries-old horse race on an Irish island that exists only when the tide allows it. Let's begin. The big story today comes out of Washington and the Middle East, where President Trump has turned his frustration on an American ally. The preliminary truce he struck with Iran months ago has now officially expired, and in an interview with Fox News, the president made clear he's in no rush to negotiate a new deal. "I'm not in a hurry," he said. But what caught everyone's attention was his threat toward Oman, the small nation on the Arabian Peninsula that has served as a mediator between Washington and Tehran. "If Oman gets in the way," the president said, "we'll bomb the shit out of them." The comment, delivered in a phone interview with Fox's Trey Yingst, underscores just how far things have drifted from the president's earlier claims that the conflict would be over quickly. Instead, both sides appear to be settling in for what analysts describe as a drawn-out campaign of economic attrition. The United States has promised to impose what it calls crushing new sanctions on Iran this week. Iranian leaders, for their part, have signaled they're willing to endure the pain, calculating that Trump will feel pressure to cut a deal before November's midterm elections. This month offered a revealing glimpse into Tehran's mindset. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei, after nearly 6 months largely out of public view, overhauled the country's top security posts, appointing hardline, veteran military commanders. Analysts say the move suggests he's preparing to keep Iran on a war footing, ready for open-ended confrontation with the United States, and prepared to quash domestic dissent among Iranians bearing the economic brunt of the conflict. Meanwhile, in other Middle East news, Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law and former White House advisor, met today in Jerusalem with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. They're trying to break a logjam over the administration's plan for the future of Gaza, a plan that has stalled for months over Hamas's refusal to disarm and Israel's continued military operations beyond agreed withdrawal lines. The meeting lasted several hours, though details of any progress remain scarce. Let's turn now to the US-Mexico border, and a story that brought together an unusual coalition of opponents. The head of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Rodney Scott, announced today a temporary pause in construction of new border security measures inside Big Bend National Park in West Texas. For months, contractors have been building a new patrol road and vehicle barriers along the Rio Grande, cutting through some of the park's most beloved natural attractions, including areas near Santa Elena Canyon. The work drew bipartisan opposition. Local law enforcement officials argued the construction was unnecessary in a desolate, undeveloped stretch where few migrants have ever crossed. Environmentalists, state leaders, and area sheriffs all pushed back. Scott said he's traveling to West Texas this week to assess the project himself. For now, the bulldozers have stopped. From the border, we move to a courtroom in Las Vegas, where opening statements began today in a case that reaches back 30 years. Dwayne Keith Davis is on trial, accused of supplying the weapon used in the 1996 drive-by shooting that killed the rapper Tupac Shakur. Prosecutors argue Davis helped orchestrate the killing. Witnesses are now taking the stand. A critical piece of evidence is Davis's own self-published memoir, which contains a detailed account of the murder. But in a striking twist, Davis, who has pleaded not guilty, now disavows the book entirely. His defense lawyer has taken an unusual tack. Rather than arguing his client is honest, he's arguing that Davis often made things up. The trial promises to revisit one of the most infamous unsolved killings in American music history. Now, a story that feels almost improbable if you've followed Baltimore over the decades. Homicides have fallen to record lows in cities across the country, but the decline is perhaps most stunning in Baltimore, a city once so notorious for its murder rate it earned the grim nickname Bodymore. Through mid-August of 2026, the city has recorded fewer homicides than any other year on record. The police commissioner is aiming for fewer than 100 killings by year's end, a number that would have been unfathomable just a few years ago. The Times spoke with people adjusting to this new reality: a detective, a nurse, a prosecutor, an undertaker. As one put it, the enormous machinery that kicks into gear after every killing, cops, medics, nurses, lawyers, ministers, morticians, is still there, but it's operating in a Baltimore that no one alive has experienced. The work of murder, in other words, hasn't disappeared. There's just less of it. Let's run through several other major developments today. In the Southwest, Lakes Powell and Meade, the nation's largest reservoirs, lifelines for millions across 7 states, have hit their lowest levels ever recorded. The Colorado River system that feeds them hasn't held this little water since 1957, underscoring a water crisis with no end in sight. At the Supreme Court, the justices rejected a second request by President Trump to overturn the $5 million civil judgment against him after a jury found in 2023 that he had sexually abused and defamed writer E. Jean Carroll. The court offered no reasons, which is typical for routine orders, and there were no noted dissents. Trump paid Carroll in July after the court initially turned away his appeal, then filed this longshot request for reconsideration. In Hawaii, Hurricane Lala didn't make landfall, but it didn't need to. The Category 1 storm brushed close enough to the Big Island to cause extensive power outages, submerge bridges and roads, damage homes, and kill at least 3 people. The ice stayed offshore, but the outer bands delivered a wallop, a reminder that in the Pacific, even a near miss can be destructive. In Texas, Muslim communities have been growing for decades, particularly around Dallas. But reporters who conducted more than 45 interviews at mosques, businesses, and political events across the state found that Islamophobia has reached what they call a turning point. One man told them, "I won't rest until every Muslim is gone." The rhetoric, they report, is moving from the fringes into mainstream conservative politics. In Ohio, NVIDIA announced it will invest as much as $105 billion to back one of the world's largest AI data centers, under construction in Pike County. The facility, which could cost up to $500 billion total, will be leased by OpenAI. Jensen Huang, NVIDIA CEO, said the company would guarantee lease and power payments at the site, a staggering sum of electricity, enough to power about 6 million households. In Italy, a 29-year-old American hiker from Wichita, Kansas, Dylan Standfast, died after being struck by lightning on Mount Etna, Europe's largest active volcano. Rescuers found him in serious condition on the eastern slope Sunday. He was helicoptered to a hospital in Catania but did not survive. In health news, a remarkable story of persistence. Only 30 people in the world are known to have Jansen's disease, an ultra-rare genetic disorder. One of them, Nina Nizar, has made a clinical trial for a treatment happen through sheer determination. She's 3 feet 9 inches tall, her bones curve inward, she uses a wheelchair and lives with constant pain, but for 10 weeks this summer, she lived in a hospital room at the National Institutes of Health as the sole participant in a study of an experimental drug. 3 of the 30 known Jansen's patients are Nizar and her 2 sons. And on the wildlife front, scientists have spotted jaguars on the US-Mexico border, a lone male roaming the Arizona mountains, and a female just across the line in Sonora, Mexico. The sightings raise hopes for a comeback of the species in the United States, but also fears that the border wall could stop it. We lost a familiar face this weekend. Hayden Panettiere, the child actress who grew up into starring roles on Heroes in Nashville, died Sunday at 36. Police in Greenville, South Carolina, said an acquaintance called 911 and responders found her in cardiac arrest at an apartment complex west of downtown. A preliminary investigation found no evidence of foul play or suspicious circumstances. Panettiere had spoken publicly in recent years about addiction, loss, and the complexities of childhood fame. She leaves behind a body of work that spanned decades. Elizabeth Smart, whose 2002 kidnapping at age 14 became one of the most high-profile abductions in American history, has launched a new podcast, The Survivor Files with Elizabeth Smart. She's not interested in the typical true crime focus on the horror itself. Instead, she's interviewing survivors of violent crimes about what came after, the ongoing, lifelong process of healing. The first episode features Kara Robinson Chamberlain, who escaped a serial killer at 15. Smart says the determination to continue moving forward, to find that inner strength, is what she wants to explore. Now, a lighter but no less delightful story: how to feed a team of firefighters. Pete Gonzalez is a firefighter in Jersey City, New Jersey. He's also a self-taught chef who often takes on breakfast duty at his station. The other firefighters chipping and cracking eggs, shopping for groceries as they wait for alarms. For the Times on the Job series, food reporter Priya Krishna spent a day with the crew, cooking, eating, and responding to calls. There's video of her visit online, and for the home cooks among us, a recipe writer explains how he feeds his family well for $28 a day. A few dinner table topics to chew on. Emmy Rossum, star of Shameless, gave a tour of her spacious Manhattan apartment, complete with a movie theater. A pug named Ginny Lou won the world's ugliest dog contest on her 4th attempt. Her floppy tongue and bulging eyes finally took the top prize. New York City gave hundreds of parents a night off with free babysitting. One couple used it for ice cream and a rare uninterrupted date. And a debate for the puzzle people: is using autocheck when solving the New York Times crossword cheating? Solvers have developed elaborate moral frameworks. Checking a spelling is a minor venial sin, looking up a proper noun a major one. Saturday puzzles, one solver noted, almost always require at least a couple of sins. For tonight, cook salmon with a blissful lemon herb marinade. Watch the new season of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, 18 seasons in, still chaotic, hectic, and frantic. Consider swapping jeans for painter's pants or cargo pants. Try 6 exercises physical therapists wish everyone did to age well. Recreate the best parts of a hotel experience at home for better sleep. Take the latest flashback history quiz. And play today's connections, spelling bee, and mini crossword. Finally, one last thing. Off Ireland's west coast lies Omey Island, uninhabited for nearly a decade. But each summer, thousands trek across the sand at low tide to watch a day of horse and pony races. The jockeys are teenagers or younger. The prize money is modest. But the century-old tradition draws crowds who set up the course in the morning, only to watch the tide come in and submerge the track. When the water recedes, the ponies run. Everything about it's special, said one 16-year-old winner. It's a race against the tide, literally, and a reminder that some traditions persist not because they're practical, but because they're meaningful. That's the evening for Monday, August 17, 2026. Thanks for listening. I'll be back tomorrow.